We were talking about borrowing someone else's talit without their permission, on the assumption that somebody wants you to do a mitzvah with their possessions. We mentioned a few different guidelines. You have to put it back where you find it. You shouldn't take it to another place. You shouldn't damage the talit. Fine, all those things were common sense. On page 323, we add, Im hadavar yadua, if it's a known fact, shebal hatalit, that the owner of the talit, makpid, is very strict, shelo yishtamesh mishu acher b'talito, that somebody else shouldn't touch their talit. You know, this person is very particular about their things. Kagon sheyadua shebal hatalit hu ishtanis. You know that sometimes this person is very particular in regards to sanitation or hygiene. Shelo yilbash mishu acher beged shelo. He's very careful that somebody else shouldn't wear his clothing. There's some people, certain things gross them out. I don't want to wear your hat. Please keep your hat away from me. And sometimes, I don't know if this is what causes a person to be this way. Some are more particular about certain things, not about other things.
Squeamish.
It always made me when ladies share their clothing with each other. I wouldn't do it. Nobody's gonna wear my shoes. Please, either my shoes or my shoes. You buy your own shoes. But sometimes
I think
ladies
women
will
do it more than men do.
It could be. It could be. I don't know.
When they're younger.
Yeah.
It's a teenage thing.
But this whole idea, this person would never let somebody else. They would never wear your clothes if you wore them. So this person probably shouldn't borrow his talit. Or maybe this is the kind of person who takes his talit, he folds it, he puts it in a closet. And he locks his little cubby, like we mentioned, Dad mentioned for us last week. Or it could even be a case where the guy goes to the gabbai, the shamash bet HaKnesset, he goes to the shamash. Shamash was always a very honorable position. Shamash and gabbai are not the same thing. Gabbai is like the guy who gives out the aliyot. A shamash is the one who made sure that the heat was on, the air conditioning was on, the floors were clean. And whereas other people would call him a custodian, he was really the owner of the shul. And everything that happened in the shul was his.
The original translation of the shamash was beetle.
A beetle. Yes. I think
Not a
where Shlomo even has a
title.
story about a shamash who would sweep the floor with his beard. You know, like one of those...
Every corner.
It's a very special thing to be a shamash. Shelo yashil talito le'acherim. He was very... He says to the shamash, listen to me, Mr. Gabbai. I don't want anybody to touch my talit. Meaning, if he says those words, asur lakachat talit v'lishtamesh ba, it's forbidden to take this talit and wear it, and the kol sheken shasur levarich. Even more so, it's forbidden to make a blessing on it. Meaning, this assumption that somebody wants me to use their objects for a mitzvah only goes when there's room to make such an assumption. But if the person does something or says something that shows you otherwise, you should stay away from their objects. Therefore,
Is that like a derech eretz stuff? You figure out what situation you can
well, this would actually be stealing. I mean, this person, you would be doing an avirah wearing their clothes. We used to have this problem in Baltimore. In Baltimore, they didn't let us, and it's a silly rule. I'm allowed to say it's a silly rule. It's a uniform. They wanted to make sure everybody looks the same, dressed the same. But if you didn't have a hat and jacket, not if you were a guest, but if you were a student, and you left your hat and jacket at the dorm room or the dining room, wherever it was, you were not allowed to come inside the synagogue and pray. So let's say it was mincha, it was 2:30, and to run back, it's going to take you 10 minutes. Okay, so you just prayed outside the door, over there, not inside the room. You weren't allowed inside. I know. I
But the
struggled
new
with
girl
it.
was
Yeah, I
outside
mean-
was the one that forgot his coat and jacket.
You know, there's a whole minion outside of guys who forgot their coat and jacket. You know, these are teenage boys you're talking about. Well, what happens sometimes, let's say you're me, you're running a few minutes late, so it's they have these huge racks. I can't damn have seen them before. Maybe in the Taizah Shiva they have them too, where people put all their hats. It's like hats, it's hundreds of hats. How you know which one is yours is incredible. It's an art, you know, like you have to recognize your hat that everyone has the same brand of from a distance. And everybody takes their hat, and by the time it's like 2 minutes into the mincha, there's like 6 straggling hats left behind. There's the other guy who wasn't there, his parents took him out to a restaurant, he's sleeping in somewhere, you know, there's always a few hats floating around. And if you were running a few minutes late, you would often find that someone borrowed your hat because he wanted to go pray inside. And so now you're stuck without a hat, and you can't go inside, and you don't have a hat, and the truth is that person who's borrowing the hat is doing an avirah of stealing. It's a real stealing. I didn't put my hat there for you to borrow it. I put my hat there for me to be able to pray with it. And you praying with it, this actually could be a scenario of mitzvah haba b'dei avera. It's a mitzvah that comes through an avera. For example, let's say you steal someone's tefillin, and then you wear tefillin for the rest of your life with stolen tefillin. Not only do you not get a mitzvah of wearing tefillin, you get an avera for doing a mitzvah with someone else's tefillin.
Each time?
Each time.
Each time.
The
Wow.
question is, how far does that go? I mean, let's say, let's come up with an example where you're not directly doing the mitzvah and avera at the same time. Let's say you steal a car and you drive to shul with the car. That tefillah counts because you're not doing the avera at the same time that you're doing the mitzvah. You drove to shul, but now that you're in the shul, you're not actively stealing the car. And therefore, in that situation, obviously you're not allowed to steal the car, but you don't lose out on all your mitzvot. It's not like somebody does one avera and then everything they do after that day it becomes null and void. It's only if it happens at the same time. So if you borrow someone else's talit and you know they don't want you to borrow their talit, you are not only not getting a mitzvah, but you're actually getting an avera for wearing their talit. And so it says here, v'yirei shamayim. Therefore, someone who is a yirei shamayim, he has fear of heaven. Yimana atzmo milakachat talit shula shelo midat chavero. He will hold himself back. He will abstain from ever borrowing someone else's talit without their permission. Because even though there's a rule that the rabbis tell us that somebody wants you to do a mitzvah with their articles, mipnei shebizmanenu, nowadays, rabim makpidim shlo yilbash acher hatalit shelem. People today are much more particular about their things, and they don't want someone else wearing their talit. V'chol sheyesh afilu safek, and even if you have a doubt, a slightest doubt, shema en ha'ba'alim maskim belev shalem shitatef acher b'talit shelo, that the owner doesn't want with a complete heart for you to wear his talit. Imagine the guy comes to shul and he sees you wearing his extra talit, and he's about to blow up at you, and the guy says, "Listen, you know what a mitzvah you get by letting him wear your talit? It's such a mitzvah. You know, every minute that he prays and goes to you, okay, fine." That's considered stealing on a certain level. He agrees, but it's not with a complete heart. It's not a real agreement. He kind of was coerced into that situation. So the guy finds out after the fact that you wore his talit, and he, okay, what can he do? But he begrudgingly gave in. It's a problem. Yeah, our rabbis have an interesting definition of a man called a chamsan. A chamsan, in the generation of Noach, there were many chamsanim. The Gemara says, you come inside, and I say, Zev, I like your watch. How much you want to sell it for? I says, no, it's very sentimental to me. I don't want to sell my watch. It says, how much is the watch worth? It's a $300 watch. So I say, I'll give you $15,000. But it's like, but this is a watch. I got an inheritance and my family. Zev's like, I'll give you the watch. Take it. Yeah? And it's an inheritance from my family. I really don't want to give it to you. It's $20,000. And what do? You give him $20,000. The watch is only worth $300. You take his watch and you walk out the door. Are you a thief?
No. Because the person decided that the value of the money...
He didn't decide it. You took it off his hand and walked out the door.
I'm sorry.
And that's
Oh, he took it off his hand.
But he gave him $20,000.
Yeah.
But he didn't-
But he didn't agree to it.
Only one party agreed to the transaction.
$20,000 I gave to you. You know how many watches you could buy with that?
Yeah,
What do you
but
mean
he
you
was
gave
coerced
to
into
it?
it
He
by the
just
money.
left it there.
Yeah.
So even if the guy says, you know what? Okay. $25,000. You give him $20,000 he walks away, that is still considered stealing. It's not the same as stealing without giving him anything. But forcing a person into a business transaction against their will, even if it's worth it for them financially, is a definition of stealing according to Halakha.
But what if you have to, there has to be like an agreement that, okay, you sign a contract.
Well, this is what the Kehillat says. How many people do business? And they get other people to agree to their business conditions. And at the end of the day, the guy's not losing anything, but he wasn't really interested in this business deal. He said, businessmen, what other people call hishtadlut, it's how they're working together. They're working hard. They're very good businessmen. He says, I would call them thieves. He said, because they're using tactics that halakha doesn't allow. You know, imagine being a used car salesman. Half of your job is trying to cover up problems. And that is a problem, halakhically. It's the kind of field where...
You're lying there.
They're lying.
Not always are you lying. You're
By omission.
you know, it's not such a big deal that this is a problem with the car. You can fix it at your local mechanic for $20. This is the field. Our rabbis tell us, "Le'olam yilamed adam beno." A person should always teach his son, "Malechet nekiya," a clean trade. What does a clean trade mean? One that doesn't involve any lies, any thievery, any exaggerations. There are rabbis that were very much against teaching their children. And lawyers are a big Jewish profession, but there are many rabbis that felt that studying to be a lawyer, the definition of a lawyer, and it's an okay. We have always had lawyers in Jewish tradition, but the definition of a lawyer is one who cannot always be honest. He sometimes has to make a case for something that is not always true. It's not always, as you might say, lawyers make a lot of money, they help people out. Blah, blah, blah. Our rabbis would say it's better your kid should be a plumber. Maybe that's better. It's better that he should go and do a job and it's quiet and he doesn't bother anybody. Our Chachamim were very upset about certain traits. You know, there's a book that I have in my house called the Sefer HaBrit HaShamim. I wish one day that somebody will translate this book to English. This book is written by an Ashkenazi Kabbalist called what?
A covenant of peace.
It's the Brit HaShalem, the complete covenant. It's actually, unfortunately, the Brit HaChadashah, the New Testament has a similar name. So people see this book in the Judaica stores and they think that it's a Christian book, but it's not. And this book was written by an Ashkenazi Mekubal called Rabbi Pinchas Halevy Horowitz of Vilna. And he was a Vilna Kabbalist, which is an interesting thing in his own right. And
From our current generation or
no, like 300 years ago. And maybe 200. He was self-taught science, math, geography, history. He would spend hours in the libraries of the non-Jewish libraries reading books and encyclopedias and writing them down, taking notes. Very special man. And he believed wholeheartedly. You know why this book is not popular? It would undermine the entire yeshiva system. He believed wholeheartedly that if a person was not an expert in secular studies, they could not be experts of Torah law. They could not
say the same thing.
Yes, but the Vilna Gaon was a lot of things that people are not. He really made it a big issue of his. That the book Sefer HaBrit is an introduction. If you want to study Kabbalah, specifically the book Shaar Ruach HaKodesh of Rabbi Chaim Vital, where you want to have Ruach HaKodesh, Rav Pinchas Halevy says that you cannot read that book without reading his book first. The first half of the book is simple things, telling you about nature, about temperatures, about thermometers, about mercury, about the rivers, oceans, thunder, lightning. Then he moves on to philosophy, the Greek philosophy, Jewish philosophy. Then he moves on to Kabbalah, like world, sphirot, dimensions, and it's a 3-part book that is very advanced. This book, at the end of it, you're supposed to be able to have Ruach HaKodesh. Where did I find this book? When Harav Peretz recommended that I learn this book. He said he got it as a gift. His father was a traveling rabbi, businessman. And when he went to Europe, he would always bring his son back books. He brought him back when he was 15, he brought him back this book. 12 maybe, young before he made Aliyah to Israel. He gave him his books and he's been learning this book his whole life. And today, so there are some scientific things that have changed since the time he wrote it, and there are new editions that have notes at the bottom correcting some of the mistakes that are inevitable inside of the book. Science has changed, science has developed, certain theories are outdated and they're new, but the concept of this book is incredible. Why am I telling you this? How do we get here to Sefer HaBrit? There's a reason for it. Oh, he was very upset at the fact that Jews didn't study secular studies in Vilna. And instead they forced themselves to be all kinds of peddlers and merchants, and they would travel for months and months at a time to other cities, to years sometimes. They would go buy in Leipzig, they would buy things and sell it somewhere else, and they wouldn't raise their children, they wouldn't see their wives, the Sefer HaBrit, he says, I don't understand. He said, we've become a nation that the Torah says about us, we're the wisest, we're the greatest, we're the most intelligent. The world looks at us, we're peddlers and beggars. He says that we don't even raise our own children. Our wives don't even know us. So we go from town to town, from city to city. We come back. He said, and whose fault is this? He said, the parents who were Torah scholars. He said, the parents said that because they're Torah scholars, their kids are also going to be Torah scholars. He said, how many kids can be Torah scholars? So they force them into yeshivot. He says, they don't teach them how to read. They don't teach them how to write. They don't teach them how to do math. They don't teach them history. They don't teach them geography. He says, and then they come out not Torah scholars, and also they're not intelligent about anything else. He said, they're bald in this direction and in that direction. The reference is to an old Talmudic tale of a man who marries 2 women, a young lady and an old lady. And the old lady very much doesn't like that he has black hairs. It makes her feel old. So she picks out all his black hairs. And his wife, the young one, doesn't like that he has so many white hairs, so she picks out all his white hairs, and he's left bald. As our rabbis say, that there are people in this world who they invest in and they end up in nothing. They're not Torah scholars, and they're not intelligent in anything else in the world. The Ben Ish Chai has a similar letter. So much so that the Sephardic world tries to hide this. The Ben Ish Chai has a letter where he speaks that how could you call yourself a religious Jew if when the earth rumbles from an earthquake, you don't know how that happens? Or when there's thunder and lightning in the sky, you don't understand what is electricity.
It leads to paganism.
What the Ben Ish Chai said, it leads to stupidity, and he believed that to be the greatest crime of all. I mean, it could lead, of course, to paganism. But he believed, how could you call yourself one who's a servant of Hashem, the one who created this world, and you don't understand the world on which you stand? Now, these things are so obvious. There's no reason we have to waste our breath on them because all of you agree. But you have to know that you're not. You come in contact with a lot of Torah scholars that don't speak like this. Their kids never went to school. They never went to yeshivot. They studied secular studies. None of them actually have any jobs or whatever it would be. You have to know that you're not in the wrong. You're not the second-class citizen. You're not the one who, okay, so you're religious and you have a job and you have a profession and you're educated. The truth is, it should be the other way, and it just isn't that way. And in Vilna, if somebody would have listened 300 years ago in Vilna, the world could look like a very different place. Very different place. And I would say that this book should be taught today. If somebody would just translate it. It's written by an old. It's like such a classic Ashkenazi source, so reliable. It's not some guy that showed up in history. This is a real Talmid Chacham that we all know and trust. You don't want to teach Torah, you don't want to teach secular studies from the Ministry of Education, fine. You worried. So at least study secular studies from your own rabbis. At least study them from the books that were written by Talmidei Chachamim. What's the excuse to not do that? A person should be, even that remote doubt that the guy doesn't want to lend you his talit, you should worry that it might be stealing by wearing it. How much more so you shouldn't make a blessing on it. Because you don't want to make a blessing on something that might be stolen. So then not everyone agrees with this. There's a book called The Shoot Binyamin Ze'ev. I don't know who was the rabbi's name is clearly Rabbi Binyamin Ze'ev. Also Rabbeinu Manoach was one of the Rishonim. They write that if the person is sitting there in the shul screaming, "Don't wear my talit! I don't want you to wear my talit!" you still are allowed to wear his talit. Because when our rabbis say a person wants you to do a mitzvah with their property, our rabbi said that even this guy, truthfully, he wants you to do a mitzvah with his property, he just is not so in tune with himself. He's not so in touch with himself. If we hit him on the head a few times, maybe he'd want you to wear his talit, and therefore, we don't even listen to him because his neshama is saying even greater than that. But that's not a halachic opinion.
Who said that?
A few of our rabbis in history, but that's not the shita we're following. If a guy says he doesn't want you to use it, it's his property. He can tell you he doesn't want you to use it. Page 324. V'ra'ui l'chol adam, it's proper for every person. L'hashil talito l'acharim she'en lehem talit. It's proper to lend your talit to people who don't have. K'dei she'efshar yeh lehem la'asot ha-mitzvah, so they'll be able to do the mitzvah. The only time you don't have to, eleim ken hu atzmo tzarich b'ota sha'en talit zo. Unless you need your talit at that moment. You come to the Beit Knesset, hey, can I borrow your talit? No, I didn't pray yet. But it's a big mitzvah to lend me your talit. I know, but I didn't pray yet. Meaning, I come before you. That's not a bad thing to say. I own this talit. I want to lend it to you. Give me 20 minutes. I'll finish praying. Half an hour. I'll give you my talit.
I've seen things like this happen with loving.
Shulavim with tefillin.
Hey, can I use it? Well, I haven't been shmulav yet. Or someone will take it and then the piton breaks off and that kind of stuff.
That's already the person who's damaging. ואין לו talit אחרת, you don't have another talit, ויצטרך לשאול מאחים talit בשביל עצמו. I don't have to lend you my talit and then go beg around somebody else to borrow their talit. I'm allowed to use my talit. You ask somebody else. I'm sorry, at this moment I can't help you. But aside from that, it's a good thing to lend your talit to other people.
If you feel comfortable.
If you feel comfortable, right.
know, there's, I have a friend who now lives in Israel who refuses to wear a talit from the shul because when he kisses the tzitzi, he doesn't want somebody else's
Schwitz.
lips on them. What about that?
This was a story.
Well, they don't stick it in
Back when, what do they call that? There was an official name for it. The swine flu. What was the real name for it? SAR? What do they call it? SAR?
SARS, yeah.
SARS, yeah.
That's like a super.
So that was going around, and it was very dangerous. And Rav Aviner put out a ruling that people shouldn't kiss the Torah in the synagogue. I kiss it, you kiss it, you put your mouth on it, I put my mouth on it. As a result, everything now becomes full of other people's kisses, and it's not a time to share germs. A person could say, I don't like my talit to be touched by other people, worn by other people. That's a personal preference. That's like the guy that you can't borrow his talit because you know that he cares enough. You're allowed to be that person.
Yeah.
And if you are that person, that's okay, that's understood. I don't know, scientifically, what could really happen if somebody kisses your talit and an hour later you kiss your talit?
I don't know.
Does that have germs last that long?
I don't think it's gonna.
I mean, it might not make you feel good inside, but I don't think that
it's
it's
how you feel, not the actual.
an actual problem.
danger. Yeah, risk.
Unless you know that person's actually sick at the time.
Right, I don't know enough about the science behind it to tell you how long these things actually last and how long. I don't know. Page 327. We wanted to know last week, does this apply to other things aside from a talit? We mentioned the Shulchan Aruch says books are a problem. Books, people don't like to lend their books, and we said maybe we're happier to lend our sidur than we are our tefillin. So we have to see what's going on with other objects and other. Haheter, this leniency, this permission. Lish'ol talit shel chavero shelo midato, to borrow someone else's talit without their permission. Shayach gam li'inyan mitzvah tefillin. It also applies to tefillin. Shemutar lish'ol tefillin shel chavero. You're allowed to borrow your friend's tefillin. Shelo midato, without his permission. Mipnei shemistama chavero maskim lekach, because we assume that he would let you borrow his tefillin. ובלבד שיהיה הדבר לפי התנאים שנאמרו לעיל לעניין טלית. You obviously have to keep to the rules we mentioned before. You have to fold them back properly. You have to put them in the right place. You can't take them to a different building and leave them there. You have to certain common sense rules about how you're using someone else's property.
And you're defining friend as just a
Friend is just another person.
Yeah.
Ulam, but. אסור לשאול ספר של חברו שלא מדעתו. It is forbidden to borrow a book from a person without his permission. מפני שיש לחוש, because we worry, שמא יבוא ללמוד בו הרבה. Maybe he'll overuse the book. He'll learn it too much. ויקרא הספר בשעת הלימוד, and he'll rip the book while he's learning it. ויבוא הבעלים לידי הפסד ממון, and the owner will come to lose money because of it. ואפילו בהקרא יש להחמיר. Some rabbis say that even on a temporary basis, you're just going to use it once. You don't come here every day and borrow his book. Just once, for 2 minutes you need it. You shouldn't use it. ויש מתירים, but some say that if you're allowed to borrow someone's book, if בספר, when a book or בסידור, or in a סידור, שהונחו בבית הכנסת, if they left them in the בית כנסת. מפני שיש להניח שעל דעת כן הניחו שם. Because you could say that when someone leaves their book, their sidur in the Beit Knesset, they intend for other people to use it, or they would have taken it home.
Yeah, well, there were many occasions where I was one of the few people that brings
Sephardic sidur, I remember.
Well, not even just Sephardic sidur, but Sfarim.
Oh, in general, book.
Yeah, I bring a book, and all of a sudden it's being passed. I get up for a second to get something. It's being passed around here. Someone's reading it there. It's like, hey, that's.
I brought it to the Beit Knesset.
Yeah.
Well, let's make a difference between a person who's at the Beit Knesset and he's expected to be able to use his book. Two, if I leave my books all over floating around the table, I leave these books here. The only books I leave here are books that I can assume somebody's going to touch them and read. They're not going to take them home. I don't let someone take these books home. But I wouldn't leave them here if they were manuscripts that I'm afraid somebody should touch, or it's my only copy of such a book. I wouldn't leave it here. But Knesset is a public place, even if it's
Yeah.
private to the rest of the world. But the people who come in and out of here,
Well,
you
you
never
don't,
know.
you don't have a special makom for your office,
Right,
So
at this point in time.
Okay.
V'yesh machmirim, and
Okay.
some are strict, even in that situation. Now there are a lot of rules about this, a lot of discussion about this. Let's suffice it to say that if you leave a book somewhere, you should write your name in the book. It's a very important thing. I have not done that recently, but in most of my books, my name appears. And you should write something inside of your book that says, you get a stamp. In yeshiva, I would have, what does it say here? This book says, it's my book. It was given to me as a gift from my dear friend Zev Rosenberg.
Oh, that's
Your name's in my book.
but you wrote it though, because my Hebrew doesn't
I
look
wrote
like
it.
that. It's much
Yes.
sloppier.
But what I would write in my books in yeshiva, I would write something to this effect. I would say, Hashem haaretz u'ma. It's an old Jewish custom to write Lamed Hey Vav in all your books. Lamed Hey Vav. It means to Hashem is everything. To Hashem is the world and everything inside of it. Meaning, I don't own this book. I'm temporarily borrowing it from Hashem and my time on this earth. Some actually write out the whole verse, but that's what we write. And then underneath, I always write either Birshut. My grandfather used to write Becheskat. It's in the possession of Yonatan Halevy. And underneath, I would say in yeshiva. Remember I told you the story about the Talmuds, they all look the same, they're all red, people borrow yours, you'll never find it. In 1 year in yeshiva, I bought three times I had to borrow the same book. People took it without asking me, and then I never found it again. Sometimes you find it in the coat room, you find it in the dining room, but I never found these books again. And the
There's
problem
something
is,
about Shas is they end up all over the place.
all over the place. And I stopped writing notes in my books because of that. I used to lose my books. And then I lost all my notes that were inside of the books also. Today it's different. My books stay with me for the most part. And then I was to write underneath, Mutar lishtamesh bo belo rishut. You can use this book without my permission. And then I would say, Betoch Dalet amot. Within 4 amot. How much is 4 amot? 4 times 18?
4 times 18?
54.
72?
72?
Like
72,
72.
Yeah. 72.
72, yeah.
72.
6 feet.
Yeah.
You're allowed to use this book within 6 feet from where you found it. Yeah?
You tie a chain.
And then I would write,
like those
Al
pens in the
Tnai
bank.
Shiachziro Miyad Nimkomo, on condition that you return it immediately to its place when you finish learning with it. So what were my conditions? You can borrow it at any time without my permission, within 6 feet. Why 6 feet?
So you don't.
That way, when I
Take it
come to look for
somewhere
my
else.
book, I can see that you're using it. It's not like you used it in a different room, and then that way I solve the problem of someone taking my book and I need it at the same time. And they should put it back immediately where they found it, because that's an important thing, to return things to the right place, and I wouldn't lose it.
Did it make a difference?
Most of the time, actually,
Yeah,
it made a
it
difference.
helped.
And you'd have guys who would write, Asur lishtamish. You're not allowed to touch my book.
Yeah.
And so nobody touched their book. You'd have guys that, you can use this book, this is an extra copy, take it wherever you want. You have the guys, different books, and I thought mine was a little too strict, but I had instructions anyways. My grandfather came from Yemen. All enough for the story. And in Yemen, books are very expensive. It's notorious that the Jews in Yemen could read a book from all directions of the page, because one guy would have a book, they would study together, and you would rotate. You know, you'd have a chance. One day you'd sit in front, one day you'd sit on the side, and you'd have to know how to read a book from any direction. And books were, I can't tell you how expensive. Like gold, they were expensive. They would come from Italy for the most part. Italy and Vilna is where books were printed. Livorno and Vilna. And the books would make it to Yemen, and you have to be very wealthy to own your own Sidur, or own your own Tanakh, or own your own Gemara. Nobody had, my grandfather had a lot of books in his family, and they brought them to Israel. Unfortunately, they're sitting on some shelf and getting worms eaten up in Kehillat. But my grandfather had in all of his books, it used to say, HaKoreh bo yismach, the one who reads in this book will rejoice. VeHagonvo yimach, and the one who steals it will be obliterated. And then it said underneath, Bet, Aleph, Bet, Taf, with apostrophes in between. So what does that mean? It means bischut, in the merit of Avraham ben Terach. Avraham Avinu, our forefather, the son of Terach. Meaning they would invoke his name and say, somebody who reads my book would be happy, and somebody who steals this should be destroyed. with a curse in it. That's how important these books were. They were like gold. I don't know that in our generation people are so particular about their books. I don't know that to be true. And I'm very particular about people taking my books away from me, or about people using them and folding creases in them, or wrinkling up the covers, or yes, maybe I'm particular, but not any more than I am about my talit or my tefillin. But it seems like people are, and therefore in halakha, I guess you have to use your sechel and say, what can I borrow from people? What can I not borrow from people? You shouldn't be playing with other people's phones when they leave them on the table, or I see all kinds of things happen today that are different. And you have to use your head. You have to. If someone leaves a coffee mug here, can you use their coffee mug even if you're going to wash it? I don't know. You have to see. Is this the kind of person who will never drink again from that mug because you used it, or he's okay as long as you wash it? These things require common sense, and they mostly come into play in the public domain, at work, at shul, places where it's semi-private, semi-public. Hashem should guide us with the right understanding of this halacha.